Hi, welcome to True Crime and Coke. I am your host, Eve. This podcast is about true crime, disappearances, mysteries, hauntings, and anything strange or unusual. I also drink a whole bunch of Diet Coke, and you will most certainly hear my dog snoring in every episode. You can check out my Instagram page at Serial Killers and Stuff, or my YouTube page at True Crime and Coke, and you can also email me at truecrimeandcoke@gmail.com with any questions, suggestions, or any comments. So let's get started. Hi, it's Eve. Welcome to bonus episode 1 of Gerard Schaefer. It's just a continuation of part 3 of Gerard Schaefer's episode, but I'm calling them bonus episodes so I don't have to edit all my podcasts to say which part it is, because I don't know how many more parts there will be. There are a lot of stories to go through. So I will start where we left off from the last episode on killer fiction. We went through the stories under the heading Whores and what to do about them. Those were Spring Break, Cut Bait, and Whores. The next stories are under the heading Whores and what to do with them. So the next story under that heading is called Detective Kelly, Rogue Cop. And remember, I cannot read it in its entirety, but only a few sections. When I get his writings and drawings that were seized during the warrant search, I can read those in their entirety. The first story is The Sex Beast Caper. Let me summarize the beginning of the story. A 16-year-old girl is sitting in a detective's penthouse apartment accused of a heinous crime, but insisting she is innocent. He is turned on by her youth and innocence. He plays on her naivety, saying that there was enough evidence to convict her of murder and she will most definitely be found guilty on trial and die in the electric chair. He says he believes that she is innocent, but the jury won't. He has an idea that if she confesses to the crime, he can protect her, live in his apartment, meet Don Johnson, and learn the call girl trade and make money. He then pulls out a tape recorder and asks her questions for her to reply yes, one of them being yes to the murder and robbery of Rebecca Stein. He got all the responses he needed and turned off the tape recorder, and he sits down on the bed, and I will begin reading some parts now. Show me your cunt now, sweetie. The kid looked like I'd slapped her across the chops, turned beet red. Come on, stand up and peel down those Calvins. Don't keep Daddy Dan waiting. I think I've changed my mind, she whispered, her eyes huge. I hooked the little tape player out of my pocket and turned it on. She listened, sobbing quietly while the confession ran its course. When the litany of murderous acts was finished, the girl said with cool contempt, "You're a real bastard." I rewarded her with a wicked open-handed slap that spun her off the chair onto the floor. "Thou shalt not be disrespectful to thy master. That's rule number 1. Now can you remember that, bitch? Or do you need a few more taps on the snoot?" The girl shook her head to get her senses back. A pretty toss of the chestnut tresses. It would be a real shame to see that lovely mane scissored off on the floor of the death house at Stark. The teen was a beauty, wholesome and fit. Only time would tell if she was smart enough to face up to the reality of her situation. "Welcome to Miami," I said with a smile, and held out my hand to help her up. She took my hand, a good sign. She rubbed at her cheek. It would be bruised, but she wouldn't be going out on the town just yet. She got right to the point when she asked, "Are you gonna fuck me now?" I ran my hard hand over her dirty hair. She needed a bath in the worst way. "What's your real name, girl?" She hesitated. I spoke softly and gentle. "Honey, if you lie to me even one time, you will fry in your own juices. This tape guarantees that, doesn't it?" She nodded glumly. "My name is Crystal Coing. I'm from Keokuk, Iowa. I just turned 16 last week, and I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to die. Please, mister. Call me Dan. Daddy Dan." She seemed confused at my genial tone, and that was fine. "On your way to see Don Johnson, were you?" "That's my plan. We get about 200 girls a week like you. The jail is chock full of them. You a runaway, a throwaway, mommy and daddy hunting you down somewhere?" Okay, so I'm going to be skipping a whole bunch, but let me give you an overview of this. So he made her a sandwich and talks to her, wanting to learn more about her. She tells him that she left home in Iowa at 16 because that is the legal age you can. He noticed that she ate and looked like she was raised in a barn, and he also noticed that she was dirty and would need a good cleaning up and lessons to be more ladylike. She said that her mom thought she had movie star looks, so she thought she would try to make it out in Miami, and she was upset that she screwed up before even getting her first audition. He found out that she only had one sexual experience, and that was when her stepdaddy raped her. She had no money, no belongings, no friends, and nowhere to go. She kept asking if she was going to be fucked now, raped now, murdered now, and she was very emotional. After eating, then he told her that this was now her permanent home, and that she was going to get all cleaned up. He knew that she would need some TLC, but she was going to be worth it as she was beautiful. He told her that from now on you're going to be called Crystal Beavers and you're going to be my #1 virgin sex slave. He says, if you're a good girl, you'll have a nice life here with Daddy Dan. Get out of line, you get beat. Cross me, you die. Easy rules in this lockup. Just think of yourself as my slave. He then goes on to talk about Oakland Park, which was surrounded by expensive homes, but in the slum was the prostitutes on every corner, adult video stores, massage parlors, porno stores, and he also talks of the politicians and the police being crooked and making money in corrupt ways. He even says that the area is worse than the Paris sewers, but the cash and pussy was first rate. So now the story shifts to another girl named Jolie. Jolie was an Oakland Park girl, born and bred. Happiness was a pipe full of crack in her head and a hard cock throbbing up her ass. This fine day she was promised both compliments of her social studies teacher from the local adult education center, who assured the failing Jolie that with a little private tutoring her grades would surely rise to passing, even exceptional levels. The lessons would start with the cock and finish with the rock. Jolie, who at 16 was too young to drive, pedaled west on her 10-speed. She pumped her way along Oakland Park Boulevard over the bridge and towards the Florida holly trees, where her nice teacher, Kevin Goodley, or it could be Goodlay, and he's playing on words, but I'm going to say he's playing on words and call him Goodlay. So Kevin Goodlay nervously awaited her with a solid hard-on poking out his pants. Wheeling her bike along the dirt path, Jolie was pleased to see Mr. Goodlay waiting near the little trail that led into the bushes. He took her hand and led her to a secluded glade, and he hastily pulled off his sweatshirt. Jolie, wasting no time, shucked off her t-shirt. Mr. Goodlay spread his sweatshirt over a cypress log and sat down on it. He pulled the smirking student trollop over toward him. Jolie boldly unsnapped her brassiere and tossed it aside, leaned forward and let him lick her sweaty teats. She allowed him to suckle, then smiling, she pushed his head lower down against her soft white belly. The educator licked the salt from her navel with deft flicks of his magical tongue. She sighed as she felt the warm tingle of arousal spread through her genitals. Tilting her head back in ecstasy, she let nature take its course beneath the green canopy of tropical forest. It was such a nice, secluded, private place for fun and games. Jolie unbuttoned her cycling shorts and slid them down over her firm, well-rounded bottom, letting them drop to her ankles. Mr. Goodlay gasped at the invitation to orally explore the shadowy muff outlined beneath the diaphanous white nylon panty. He buried his face in her thighs. Jolie's attention was focused solely on the pulsing between her legs until she heard the snap of a stick. She looked up and saw the figure not 6 feet away. It startled her. But what was it? It looked like a hairy man. Could it be a man in an old fur coat? She squinted at him. He was tall and muscular, and the long, thick fur was matted with sand spurs, stick tights, and cockleburs. The head was conical, with a black mane framing the riveting features, deep-set, ruby-tinted, glowing eyes, a simian nose with an elongated muzzle like a baboon. Was this the beast? Her mind writhed, grasping and discarding every animal she knew of. Then the beast crouched, and her mind went blank. She stiffened as the thing silently advanced. Mr. Goodlay interpreted her speechless reaction as a pre-orgasmic shiver. He grasped her sex-sodden panties and pulled them down to her knees. Jolie stumbled backwards as the thing bared his teeth. The oblivious Goodlay made a lunge towards her, issuing a sexy growl, his eyes fixed on the cleft of her glistening cunt. The claws came from behind and ripped out Goodlay's throat, then twisted off his head. Jolie watched his decapitated body arch forward, his heels drumming the soft earth, his still rigid penis spewing a viscous string of white semen. Some of it sprayed across her face, and she was bringing her hand up to wipe it off when the beast raked his claws up between the dead man's legs, shredding his genitals and stuffing the mangled flesh into his mouth. Jolie tripped over her shorts as she jumped back. She fell on her butt and rolled over to the side as she vomited convulsively. The beast snarled and stepped toward Jolie, reaching out with a deadly quickness. He seized her foot. She jerked her leg away, leaving the monster holding onto her dirty sneaker. She rolled over onto her hands and knees and tried to get to her feet, but she stumbled over her shorts again. In panic, she tore them off and gained her foothold, trembling. The beast, a string of gore hanging from his mouth, bared his fangs at her and growled. Jolie turned and dashed into the thick brush. She knew she had to get back to her 10-speed and the safety of the boulevard. Thorns raked her naked breasts. Tears strung her scratched cheeks. She sobbed in abject terror. She could hear sounds of life nearby, the swish of a rubber on asphalt, the squeal of brakes and honk of horns, and the grunt and hiss of something crashing through the undergrowth behind her. The beast! Jolie felt the furry paw on her shoulder, the hot, stinking breath on her neck, the claws sinking into the soft tissue of her shoulder. She opened her mouth and she screamed and screamed and screamed. She felt the flesh ripping from her arm as the beast spun her around and shoved her to the ground. The repulsive musk of a skunk enveloped her as she felt the blunt knob of an enormous penis pressed against her sex. She tried to struggle, but the beast thrust this weapon into her. She felt her insides rip apart as her organs were violated, and then she knew nothing more. She was dead. The beast followed the levee along the C-14 canal, walking hunched over in a half-crouch. He avoided the open areas, staying to the sawgrass and myrtle. The creature relived the desperate, cruel pain that drove him to rape and kill again and again. The rage in his head and the rage in his genitals tore at him. Pain controlled his every instinct. The beast crept up the side of the levee toward the VW bug concealed in the bushes. He stood perfectly still and sniffed the air for signs of danger. Finding no cause for alarm, the beast stood upright, walked to the car, and removed the weighty fur costume, the conical head, and the steel claws. The creature was refreshed after his rampage. The doctors had told him he was a sex beast. They said he was incurable. He got into his little car and drove away. So the hard thing about summarizing a lot of his stories is that almost every paragraph is extremely gruesome or perverted. So it's like you have to read it in its entirety to get the full scope. So I'm going to summarize a little bit. So, of course, this murder made the newspapers. Crystal Beavers, who was living with Daddy Dan at his apartment, was reading all about the sex beast caper in the news, and Dan made a call to the detectives to get some more information on the case. So I am going to start where he called the station. I called George Kent from the station house. "What's the word on the sex beast case?" I asked him. He was embarrassed to tell me he was making no progress. I wasn't surprised. Ken had never solved a murder case in 17 years on the force. He was an ace when it came to busting hookers and writing traffic tickets. He had a reasonable explanation. Felony busts don't generate income. The Oakland Park Police Department keeps those high-fine misdemeanors rolling in. Fuck felony, that was Kent's motto, but he did mention that the sex beast was scaring away tourists, which was bad for the hooker business. I made a suggestion and he liked my idea. After all, he was a desperate man. So then I guess they go out to where the crime scene was, and Crystal took one look at the blood-stained cypress log and frowned deeply. "That was where we found what was left of Goodlay, Dan. Seems he'd been stretching that teen pussy for years, sucky-fucky in exchange for passing grades. Seems like we had a rotten apple this time. Most of the child molesters we bust are school teachers. It's really amazing, but statistics don't lie." George Kent told it like it was. He turned to Crystal and said, "Are you sure you want to risk this, Miss Beavers?" She's sure, I said. Crystal Beaver's aspiring starlet and public-spirited citizen drew off her sweatshirt and unfastened her jeans. She slid them down and stepped out of them along with her panties. She handed her clothes to me. I spread the sweatshirt on the log and motioned for Crystal to sit. A short length of chain was fastened around her ankle, and the other end wound several times around the cypress log. Crystal sat there gloriously naked and cried dispiritedly, "Here, sex beastie, come to Crystal." She gave Kent a lopsided grin. He missed it. He was too preoccupied with her 38C Hooters, stuck right out there in front of God and everybody. "We'll be hiding right across the glade, kid, so don't you worry your sweet little head about a thing." I patted her head. "If you let that skunk ape come near me, Dan, so help me, oh, yeah, I know, but like Sergeant Kent says, the town is about to be foreclosed. Everybody is too scared to come out at night, so the cops can't arrest anyone. In desperate times, it takes desperate measures to survive. If there really is a sex beast out there, your Chanel number 5 is going to draw him in. He gets anywhere close and he's blown to bits. If there ain't no sex beast, then we can have a press conference and announce that we have run a test and the coast is clear." "Oh, Dan, I want to help, really, I do, but why do I have to wear these chains?" "That's so you don't wander off, Crystal. You don't realize how important a role you play in saving the community. The hookers need to get back on the street. They're the lifeblood of the municipal government. I'll buy you a nice present from the police slush fund for your contribution. You're a good girl." So the two detectives go hide, and they're talking. Kent is wanting to know how he scooped up that luscious piece of ass, and was jealous because he started to pick up a taste for premature tail working with the juvenile division, crack mad little sluts with mouths that lie and suck with equal fervor. And he says, "You Miami Heat get all the good pussy. Stuff we get up here in Oakland Park is strictly commercial grade. I could sure use me a taste of that sweet California wine. Crystal's spoken for. She's poison ivy, man. You can look, but you better not touch." And then it goes on to talk about the sex beast was on the prowl again, put on his coat and paws and steel claws, all while Crystal was just waiting and slapping at the mosquitoes and bugs and just kind of singing to herself, just passing time. She was getting all sweaty as it was becoming sundown. And then all of a sudden she heard noises and her heart thumped and she panicked, and there before her she saw it. The brown matted heap of fur took shape as it stealthily approached her across the open area of the glade. It seemed to be advancing on all fours with a weird, uneven, shambling gait. The thing moved within a dozen feet of her and suddenly reared up to its full height. The beast looming over her reminded her of the wolfman, but with features like an ape. And the stink! Crystal screamed with mortal terror and revulsion as the beast lumbered toward her. She tried to run but fell flat, her leg held fast by the steel chain. And then all of a sudden there was light, and the beast turned around to see a video cam on his face. The cops fired at him, and he didn't even flinch an eye. Kent got scared. He ran away, and then the beast dropped on all fours and went running into the woods. And then that was when Crystal talked about him smelling worse than a skunk, and that he smelled like something was dead, and that when he stood up, she could see a huge thing on him that was big, black, and hard, and was aiming it straight towards her, and she was scared that he would rape her. She got her story in the paper for $70,000. Of course, that was given to Daddy Dan, just talking about the sex beast and how they're finding him. So this particular story is very long, and I can't go through all of it, but it goes on to all of a sudden talk about a new set of people, this time men or young guys, and them being gay, and then going into all about like anal sex and just his normal pervertedness as he does with the women, and how she talks to the papers about the sex beast. I mean, like, you'd have to read it, and of course in the end, Daddy Dan was the hero because he asked if the 16-year-old girl has ever had her pussy sucked, and she was confused what that was, and so it goes into detail at exactly what he did, her body reactions to how great it was, and all that, and how wonderful it was, and of course, making him the awesome sex hero. And then it goes on to eventually find out that the sex beast is, in fact, Gerard Schaefer himself. And like I said, it's too long for me to summarize on here, and I really don't feel like it. I feel like getting to his other stuff. And so, yeah. But I am going to leave off reading some of his poems, and on my next episode I'm thinking that there'll probably be 2 more. Those will be also extremely graphic. This one wasn't too bad. Okay, so this poem is called Sex Beast. They say I eat little girls, got a hungry look in my eye, say I make them scream and get off when they die. They call me Sex Beast. The girls will never tell, those who knew me well, how I made them scream, how I made them yell. They met the sex beast. Sexy little prom queens, oh so cool, each one knowing she'd been a fool. Pretty ladies in my hairy paw. Last thing most of them saw was the sex beast. Long pink tongue licking at her ear. I told her she could disappear. Missing person for eternity. Last thing that the girl would see was the sex beast. She never said a word. When she heard me growl, the last thing she heard was the savage howl of the sex beast. Next one is called Susie Prime, True Crime. Hey, fuck slut, little prom queen. What you doing up in North Palm Beach? Sightseeing, tricking, scoring your sag? Say, Susie, where do you get that bag? Where's your man? Where's your pusher? Where's your sugar daddy? How'd you get out of jail? How'd you make bail? Susie Prime, true crime, doing time, earn that dime? Bag, brown skag, set her free, killing tree, police fantasy. Susie Prime, double time, 1, 2, 3, so efficiently swinging from the tree with flying feet to match the beat of dying. That's her fee for lying. Take her to the tree, that's her fee for telling. Please don't hang me, she was yelling. Birdie, she did sing. Then take a swing on the rope, no more dope. Just dancing, fine young thing, prancing, spike heels, rhinestones dress. Now she's just a stinking mess. Next one's called Lucille. Lucille, how'd it feel? Tearing your daughter from your breast, driving Susie from the nest, junkie daughter pest, the one you laid to rest, no more. You closed that door on the teenage whore. Did she stay out late? Make mummy wait? You raised her right, so you swore. Loved her to the core, so you state. Please, Lucille, tell us the date Susie met her fate. Did you forget to change that date? It's too weird to believe. When did Susie really leave? When did you really see? What's your reality? What's Lucille's fantasy? I've heard your lie. No matter how you try it, it doesn't fly. Your story's dead like Susie's severed head. Remember how the doctor said it's a girl? She was your whole world, so you changed and fed sweet little Susie, but she's not grown. She won't be wed. Your Susie dreams are dead. Next one's Georgia Peach. Pretty Georgia sweet peach, now you're rotting on the beach. Young girl fled from her home, 4 parts unknown, to find her head. Her letter said, now she's dead, and rotten, gone, but not forgotten. By the family she tried to flee, running toward the killing tree with Susie, addicted floozy, sweet Georgia pretty peach, dead and rotten on the beach. Body naked on the sand, flesh destroyed by human hand. Were you hanging from the tree, or were you crying for your life? Cut to pieces with the killer's knife. Pretty Georgia, do tell. Scream your answers up from hell. Next one is called Mortal Sin. Vomit dripping from her chin, restitution for mortal sin. Shapely hips, painted lips, salty tears making streaks down her cheeks. They dribble down, mixed with snot, yellow-green, wet sheen on upper lips it drips. Frothy bubbles from her nose, sticky blood between her toes. Hear her squill, smell her fear, see her drool, so uncool. Last one is Necessary Blood. Death smell, evil spell, salty tears, streak your cheeks, it's time to die. Now watch you cry, scared and crying for your life by the very sight of the killer's knife. Now you're gonna bleed, real blood. Squirts from your neck into the mud. Real blood runs out your nose onto your lips. Flesh rips, destroyed by human hand. At the end, crawling on your knees, begging for your life. Oh, pretty please, spare the terror of the killer's knife. Now he put you to the still. Tell me, how's it feel? Muffled shriek, caressing sting. Red slime splashes over everything. Crimson flow between creamy dugs. Here it comes. Necessary Blood. My opinion, he was not a very good poet, and he probably didn't know it. Until next time, have a good evening. Oh, and I'm not going to lie. I know this episode was short and rushed, but I fought the resistance of TikTok for so long, and then I finally succumbed to it and am addicted and want to make nothing but videos that I will regret posting. So I rushed this just so I can hurry and go do that. So I'm sorry. Bye.